Hello and welcome to City of Hope, Discoveries for Hope. This is a live panel discussion and we're going to be talking about postdoctoral fellowships here at City of Hope. My name is Andy Powell. I'm a research and scientific recruiter at City of Hope. And very briefly, would like to give you a little background about City of Hope. City of Hope is a medical center where we do treatment, and we also conduct basic research here at City of Hope. We also have a small graduate school and a manufacturing facility, state-of-the-art manufacturing, where we develop experimental therapies. City of Hope is 112 years old. We're one of the founders of the National Comprehensive Cancer Network, and we're one of only 40 comprehensive cancer centers as designated by the National Cancer Institute. Our postdocs today will be talking about their experience with City of Hope, the type of research that they do and the laboratories that they're involved in, as well as a little background in terms of where they came from and how they came to City of Hope. Before we start our discussion, if you're asking questions, if you're watching us on Google+, you could submit your questions through the Q&A application. Additionally, if you're viewing the broadcast from YouTube, annotations are available to the video. And joining our discussion on Twitter, make sure to add hashtag Discoveries for Hope to your tweets and questions. So now I'd like to introduce our panel of experts. So we'll start here and introduce yourself.
Okay. Hello, everyone. My name is Nadia Ghazali. I am from Malaysia. And so I'm not from here, but I have been here for a long time. I've been at City of Hope for 5 years for graduate school, and I am a newly minted postdoc here. And I am very excited to share my experiences with you. So, yeah.
My name is Janine Quijano. I was raised in Southern California, went to undergrad at UC San Diego, graduate school at Arizona State, and then I wanted to come back to California for my postdoc, and somebody in the LA area suggested I look up City of Hope, so I did, and it got lucky, and here I am. I've been here for a little under a year, so fairly new to City of Hope myself.
My name is Hasmin Lohman. I am a postdoc in Mekong's lab here. I grew up in Arizona. I'm Native American. I went to the University of Arizona for my bachelor's, and then I soon afterwards went to the University of Minnesota in Minneapolis, Minnesota. And I came here. I wanted to come back to the West Coast area for my postdoc, and I can share how I got here later. But I enjoy being in this area.
Hello, my name is Marcela Salazar. I'm originally from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. I did my undergrad back in Rio. I moved to the United States to do my PhD in Ohio at the University of Toledo. And later I moved here to Southern California. And I've been in City of Hope for 3 years. And it's been great.
Thank you. For those of you who have come to City of Hope, can you talk a little bit about what was the process that you went through, maybe in deciding about whether to do a postdoc, and if you've made that decision, how did you find out about City of Hope? What kind of process did you go through?
So as I was graduating with the PhD, I wanted to go into an academic profession, faculty at a university. Career choice, and so a postdoc was the next thing for me. I wanted more of a stem cell type research focus. I come from developmental genetics and fruit fly, so coming here to City of Hope was definitely a switch because it's more of a translational science. I'm currently working with human stem cells. So I'm a little
Fantastic. And how did you pick City of Hope?
So as I said before, I looked up the different research areas in Southern California, and City of Hope had their, on their website, had postdoc positions open. And so I looked through the list and I found the advertisement for the current lab that I'm working in and set my resume in. And they, the PI, Teresa Koo, liked my resume and offered to bring me out for an interview and subsequently offered me the job. So.
Fabulous. How does the idea you mentioned about the translational research that we do here, how does that distinguish City of Hope? What is the nature of that for a researcher? So
a unique aspect of the lab is that we are able to obtain human non-islet cells from donor tissue. And the pancreas, where the non-islet cells come from, is processed in a lab just one floor below us. And they take the islets to transplant into type 1 diabetic patients. The non-islet tissue is what I work with, and I'm developing a technique to use adult progenitor cells to differentiate into beta-like cells for transplantation into type 1 diabetic patients as well.
Oh, fantastic. So this is something where you kind of see the application of the research, is that correct?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, great. Who's our next expert?
I guess me. So the question was, how did I end up at City of Hope? So after grad school, I was pretty tired. I did not want to go into science. And my advisor at the time in Minnesota, she really wanted me to consider that. So she allowed me to stay in her lab for a few months. And during that time, I started to become curious as to what I could do in terms of cancer cell metabolism. And that was a topic that I became interested in while I was in her lab. And one day I Googled cancer cell metabolism postdocs, and City of Hope was the first top hit that came up. And so I submitted an application. I received an email within the week stating that, okay, there's a researcher here who seems to have your interest. And so they forwarded me her information. It turns out this particular researcher, Mei Kong, was a postdoc in the same lab that my advisor in Minnesota was a postdoc in. And so they talked to one another, and they both called me later and said, okay, we think this would be a great fit for you. It matches your interests. Since Amita, my advisor, knew me, and May knew Amita, they were able to convince me to give them a try. And I'm glad I did. I really like the research I'm doing. It is very much cancer cell metabolism. And so I also was invited to come out here for an interview. I did that. I received the notification a few days afterwards to say that they would want me here. So I came out here.
Fantastic. So networking played a part in your case between your current PI and a former researcher who you work with, or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it definitely did.
Yeah. Great, thank you.
So this is actually my second postdoc. I came from Ohio to do my first postdoc at USC. But then I really wanted to get more experience into preclinical models of cancer research, and especially immunotherapy, because as I was looking for jobs in industry, like 95% of them required some level of expertise in immunotherapy, and it became very clear to me that that is something I need to do. So then I founded City of Hope, a great lab. I work with Dr. Don Diamond, and it's a very translational lab. Like almost 100% of my research is in mice, but he also conducts clinical trials. So we have the opportunity to see how things go in both sides, like on the bench and on the bad side. So yeah, that's been very, very helpful for me. And we do research in vaccine development and checkpoint inhibitors, and we have new vaccines now in the lab being tested on a clinical trial. So it's a good feeling to see that it actually happens. It goes to patients, so.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
What would you say to people who are looking for a postdoc opportunity now that you've come here? What would you say to them as from your perspective now that you've come here and been at City of Hope for some time now?
Well, I like that it's not such a big campus. It's not intimidating. It feels like a smaller community where everybody knows each other, and I kind of like that feeling. Like I did my PhD in Ohio, and that was the Midwest feeling. Everybody talks to you, and I think it's a great community, and people you feel like you can approach them.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big plus.
Yeah, I also feel as though the professors or the other researchers on this campus, aside from, my primary advisor, I feel like the other researchers, they're invested in your research as well. At least I feel that way when I present my data, whether it be at the retreats we have or other seminar presentations that I give. I'm also on the DNA damage response and oncogenic signaling fellowship here at City of Hope. It's a postdoctoral fellowship, and I feel like that's another added support I have in terms of committee members who want to see me progress. So I do like that sort of tight-knit feeling.
I've noticed in the journal club that I attend on a weekly basis that there's multiple PIs that are attending and asking questions, being involved in the analysis of the papers that we look at. And that type of interaction is good as a postdoc, because you get to interact with people that you wouldn't necessarily see in the hallway or anything like that.
I agree with the community, and the community aspect is not just within City of Hope, but it's also outside of City of Hope, because City of Hope is close to a lot of schools, and City of Hope has had good partnership with schools around the area, so that students from the schools, from the local school districts, will be able to be exposed to scientific research being done at this level. And so they would conduct visits and field trips. And as postdocs, graduate students, research assistants, everybody gets to be involved in this venture as well, to help with interact with the students, interact with the people in the community. And so I think that's the other part of City of Hope that I really like. Yeah.
Fantastic. The working in the lab, can you talk a little bit about how is the environment in the lab? Who all is working in the lab? How is the research directed, and who drives the research, and who is helping with the research? How does that process work here at City of Hope?
I think that would vary lab by lab, but in my lab, which is also the same as Janine's lab, we have a pretty small lab. We have one graduate student, one postdoc, one research assistant, one PI, one staff scientist. So we have one of each. And everybody has their own role. And as for graduate students and postdoc, we pretty much have our days filled with doing experiments and data analysis. And doing experiments can vary from a full day of getting mice and dissecting those mice and getting the cells from those mice, to very slow days like just adding growth factors to your culture and so on. What I like about being in research is that no 2 days are the same. but you're always working towards the same goal. And every day that you're doing something, I feel like you're getting closer to your goal. In terms of who runs the research is usually our PI, Teresa Koo. Our relationship with her is I think it's pretty good. Like, I really like the level of independence that we get, but also the level of help that she gives. It's very balanced. We have a weekly meeting with her where we talk about our weekly plans. But as far as what we do on a day-to-day basis is up to us. And so that's very nice. And she tends to expect us to be more independent the longer we spend in the lab. So even the research assistants would need to be more independent the longer she stays in the lab and so on. So yeah, I think that's, to us, it's pretty typical. I don't know about other labs.
Yeah, I agree with you that it varies. When I joined May's lab, it was composed of already 3 postdocs. I was the 4th postdoc and 1 grad student. And that's what we sort of maintained is 3 postdocs now. We have 2 graduate students. And because of that composition, we don't have a research assistant or a technician. Our lab is very independent. Very independent driven. So we actually have our own projects. They rarely overlap. They might generally, we work on something, but we all have our individual projects. I think that we meet together weekly for lab meetings, and I think most labs do that. And that becomes really important for our lab because we get to check up on the progress we're making every few weeks. I think that, every day it's different.
Yeah.
There are journal club meetings, there are seminars that are going on, course or classes that are always being offered. So it really depends on how you want to manage your schedule and how much work you want to get done in the lab.
Well, my lab, it's pretty big. I think I keep losing count, but I think we are close to 20 people. We have lots of postdocs, 1 grad student, but research assistant professor, and it's a big lab, but nobody competes with each other. People are very supportive of each other. We have our own projects, and as far as the mentorship goes, Dr. Diamond, he gives us a lot of independence, so it's a great place for postdocs because we can really exercise that. And we write lots of grant applications, and we try to fund ourselves and to do, competitive research. So I think it's a great place to become independent, to give you that confidence that you can do it. So.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That's an interesting point about opportunities for grant applications and funding yourself. And do you find that City of Hope, Beckman Research Institute, is supportive of that?
Absolutely. So since I joined, I had like a couple of grants from the Nesbitt Foundation. Actually, most of the money that supported my research came from City of Hope. We also got a grant from the Cancer Center here. I think it was $60,000. So I think overall was over 100,000, and that was very helpful because all the research in vivo takes, a lot of money, and that really helped me to, stay on track and work on my project. So but I applied for fellowships outside too.
I know when I interviewed, Teresa was very open about the possibility of writing a grant as soon as I got here, and possibly even starting to write before I started working. And since I've been here, I went through the process to write a grant for NIH as well as JDRF, which is Juvenile Diabetes Research Foundation, and for a fellowship grant for myself. And I found that everybody was so supportive in helping me work through this. Not only was Teresa helpful, but there's science writers here at City of Hope that will review the grant application, like the research strategy, and give you lots of helpful tips to make the application better. So
Fantastic. Wonderful. Does City of Hope have good resources, good equipment, things like that? And I guess we have shared resources, core facilities. Can you talk about those at all, or?
right. So I mean, I've worked with a couple of core facilities. The biggest one, I guess, is the Mouse House facility. The Mouse House.
Otherwise known as the Animal Resource.
Yes. Mouse house is better. It rhymes.
But so that is the main place where the mice live.
Yeah.
I think it's very well equipped. I mean, for everybody I know, you don't need to outsource, I think, anything.
Yeah.
You have flow cores, you can do cell sorting, like microscopy cores, very good.
Transmission electron microscopy core.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Can send their samples to genotyping.
Yeah.
Like in our lab, we can make peptide libraries.
Yeah. Sequencing core.
Yeah, we have mass specs. We
Mass
have,
spec core.
we are very, very well equipped.
Yeah. And the people that run the cores are also amazing. They are so helpful and very knowledgeable in what they do, and so that a lot of the experiments that we do, we can always run it to with them first to make sure that we're doing everything correctly, and they will always be there to help. And so that's what I really like about it too. I wish the cores are more available because sometimes the core is a little bit limited, and I think that speaks to how much the cores are being used, because there's sometimes like you have to book something 2 weeks in advance, and that's sometimes not good, but at the same time it shows how much the cores are being used and how important their services are.
They're very busy.
Oh, yeah.
And like I do a lot of imaging, like tumor imaging mice, and that core is busy.
Yeah.
You can do fluorescence, bioluminescence.
I think it's the coolest core.
Yeah.
I really like it.
The confocal.
Yeah. I think it's the best.
Fantastic. What would you say, what about outside activities at City of Hope for postdoctoral fellows or anyone who's here? What's the community like? What types of activities? Do you have time for activities?
Well, this is a late.
You can pretty much
Always.
do anything that
A
you
lot of
want.
things
Yeah,
to do.
they're willing to drive. They're willing to do
drive.
anything.
Well, the weather is amazing, so that
So-
always helps. You can go to the beach.
Yeah,
those are-
recently I did a weekend camping at the beach, which was a lot of fun.
Well, that sounds great.
Yeah.
a lot of hiking.
Yeah. Could do 5Ks, 10Ks. It seems like there's one every single weekend.
All kinds
Somewhere.
of restaurants.
Yeah, I know.
Oh,
There's
that's
just so
what I
many
do.
different ways to
Right.
make yourself, I don't know,
Mhm.
to immerse yourself in this culture.
Yeah, I think you could go eat outside, eat at the restaurants every weekend and still not exhaust like everything around the area, because there's just so many. That's what I've been doing. I've just been eating at all different places. But there's a lot of clubs, like sports clubs. So there's volleyball tournaments, soccer tournaments, basketball tournaments, where there's always students versus PIs. So students versus the faculty members. That's always fun. I'm pretty sure students always win. And sometimes PIs like to recruit the students who are really good to get on their team. And I'm like, no, you can't do that. So all these happen actually on City of Hope campus. So you can actually play soccer, volleyball, and basketball on City of Hope campus. there's a lot of parks,
Yeah.
but just a ton of parks and within walking distance from City of Hope.
And the Postdoctoral Association tries to do an
Oh, yeah.
event once a month
Mhm.
for Postdoc Week. About a week ago or so, we hosted a family movie night on the grounds at City of Hope.
Outdoor movie.
An outdoor movie,
yeah.
pop-up
Yeah.
screen
Yeah.
with blankets for families. and
Yeah.
I think it went really well.
Yeah.
All right, well, we have people submitting questions. So I have several questions here. And the first question is, I'm a student and will be making my decision about postdoctoral fellowship program. What should I be looking for? What factors matter?
Well, that's a very general. I guess
Yeah.
it depends on what ultimately they want to do for their career. I think if you want to go towards academia, postdoc is never a bad idea, or actually postdoc is required.
Mhm.
If you want to go to industry, postdoc is also good. If you want to go teaching, which is actually what my career goal is, a one-year postdoc is actually a good idea. A lot of schools that hire full-time faculties now want to see that you have postdoc experience before you can be considered to be a full-time faculty, even in teaching-focused institutions. As for what factors, I think that can be something, because a lot of things are very there's a lot of institutions now. I think that really is their own personal.
I think
thing.
it's good to know if the lab is well funded,
Yes.
because if the lab is not well funded, it'll be pretty hard
Yeah.
to get things done because you won't have enough money for
Yes.
reagents and research is overall an
And
expensive endeavor. so-
also your project may switch from one focus to another
Exactly.
if
Yeah.
you're trying to chase money.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
I mean, if you can write for your own fellowships
Mhm.
before you start your postdoc, that would put you in a really good position because you're coming with your own money. But that's hard
Yeah.
to do. And I agree with the comment earlier. There's a lot of factors that go into it. You need to be able to evaluate what you want to get out of a postdoc, because even though I know industry requires a postdoc stint, it seems that not every city will depending on how much biotech is going on in that city, it might not be a requirement. So it really depends on where you want to end up. If you want to do the teaching, it's really difficult. It can be difficult here in LA to move into, I don't know, some biotech field because there's so much and there's a lot of competition here.
Mhm.
Whereas if you go to another area of the country, it might be different. But a postdoc fellowship or a career might really be beneficial as you try to solve that or figure that out for yourself.
Well, I heard one advice a long time ago, and I think that's very true. It's always good to see where former people from the lab end up. Then you get also a sense of how supportive the
Yes.
PI is, and this is very important for you in your career, for you to get recommendation letters.
Mhm.
If there's, usually a support system there behind them. I think that's good to
That's
ask
Yeah.
when you go on an interview and you have an opportunity to be alone with the students or the
Yeah.
postdocs, just to kind of ask them, so
And I think
get a sense.
the personality of the lab can have an influence on your decision. If you feel apprehensive about, working with one person or another, then that might not be the right lab for you. But
Yeah.
that's something to consider when you do your interviews. Yeah.
Great. Our next question is, as a postdoc, is productivity more important than the number of hours you work?
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
For sure.
yeah.
Yes.
It's all about how efficient you work, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I would say, so for me, I tend to I have to say, to be honest, I'm not a very efficient worker, so I tend to need more hours to work to finish something. But I do get it finished. And I like to be a perfectionist sometimes, so I want to make sure that everything I do, everything I submit, everything I write, all experiments I do are, as good as it can be. And so for me, yes, I want to be more efficient, but I accept that sometimes I cannot be, and I just need to put the time into it. I think as long as you know how you work and that work style fits with the lab that you're going into and the PI that you're working with, then there shouldn't be any problem with how you work.
Yeah, and I mean, I like in the lab I'm able to set my own hours, so I usually end up coming in before anybody else in the lab does, and stay until whenever my work is done. So,
yeah,
I mean, it's very flexible that way.
yeah. But I think in general, everybody that I've known in CFO, they all work pretty much, regular hours. I would say 9 to 5 plus minus 2 hours.
Weekends.
Yeah, and weekends. And I don't think it's like a crazy place where you are expected to be there 24/7. And of course, this again varies with lab from lab to lab. But the general feeling that I get from City of Hope is that it's pretty. I don't want to say relaxed, but less workaholic.
Competitive.
Less competitive. Yeah.
What do you guys think?
I think it depends on the lab you're in.
Yeah.
In our lab, since when I joined, 2 of the postdocs, they have young families.
Mm-hmm.
And so their hours are different than, the grad students.
Yeah.
Granted, everyone is very efficient in how they use their time or how they structure their time. So it really depends on the lab and you as a person, how much you want to get out of it, how much you want to get done.
Yeah, I think research goes like in waves.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's crazy busy,
Yes.
and sometimes it slows down.
Yeah.
So I would say that it varies for me. Sometimes I have to come in late. Sometimes I have to come in the weekends, but I also have a lot of free weekends.
Yeah.
And I think it's very normal.
Okay, great. Our next question is, how is authorship handled? How often and where does the lab publish? How are the opportunities for publishing at City of Hope?
Well, I think it's very fair from my friends, and I'm wrapping up a paper now. I think it goes very fair in the lab.
I agree.
And in my lab, there's not much overlap. So unless your project is really related, I think it would be hard for you to be in that paper. But we usually publish in good journals, at least Impact Factor 7 and up. So I think it varies by PI, but I would say people are honest to give you credit if you deserve.
Yeah, I know in terms of graduate students, since I just graduated, I would say on average, graduate students from City of Hope get about 2 papers by the time they graduate. At least 1 paper, one first author paper by the time they graduate, and then maybe another one as they are finishing up or as they leave. So for graduate students, I would say that's a pretty good average. As for postdocs, the ones that I know who have done their training in maybe 3 years, I think they would be able to get at least 1 paper, one first author paper, and definitely 2. The second would be in the works, for example. Authorship, like she said, it's pretty fair. I think it's pretty rare that I heard people don't get the authorship that they deserve from here.
Yeah, we actually have a class as postdocs that we have to take, the responsible conduct of research class. and I know that's discussed, like 1 hour, 2 hours, that's discussed. And so I think we're well aware of that topic and how to bring it up with our PI if we have to.
Thank you. Next question is your potential mentor receptive to collaborations with other labs?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. In fact, our lab is also very receptive to collaborating with other institutions.
Yep.
And so since it's a heavily, we do a lot of metabolism related experiments, we have collaborators actually all on the East Coast right now.
Mhm.
And one of them's coming to speak here at the City of Hope in a couple weeks. So we're excited about that.
Where do you see yourself in 5 years? Please describe the professional goals you are seeking.
For number one out of here.
Yes.
I mean, I just started, so maybe I'm in the transition to getting a faculty job. But
Yes.
yeah.
For me, in 5 years, hopefully I'll be a full-time faculty member because that's always been my goal, is to become a teaching faculty. And so I've started teaching now, and this postdoc is kind of a transition away from research for me. But yeah, in 5 years, I see myself as holding a full-time faculty position.
I think so the fellowship that I'm on, I call it the D.D. Ross Fellowship because it's such a DNA damage response and oxygen signaling. That fellowship, the end goal for that is for me to transition into an independent research position. So where I'll be in charge of a lab. I mean, that's the goal. And hopefully that will be true in like 5 years. But I'm also open to other possibilities. I love science, and I think that like I don't want to ever limit myself to like, oh, I'm just gonna do this. I would be interested to see what industry offers. I'm keeping my options open. But
Yeah, I for sure want to be involved in research, and I want to be doing like research and development, some biotech, some company. I'm not really interested into becoming a faculty. I don't know. I think it's a great path. I just don't feel like it's for me. But I definitely want to be involved with, developing new treatments and things like that.
I think City of Hope is a good place for if you don't know if you want to go to industry or academia.
That's true.
The research done here can be applied to either one.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thank you. All right, our next question is, as a student interested in science and research, what educational steps should I take to become a postdoc?
Well, starting, I guess, as an undergrad, biology major.
Yes.
And then, I took a couple years off between undergrad and graduate school, and I worked in industry for a couple years, and then I went back to grad school.
And I guess people should know that most of the work we do is biology.
Yes.
And maybe some chemistry, biochemistry.
But not engineering or
Right. Yeah.
math or physics
Right.
or computers or anything like
we
that.
don't
But there are
really-
postdocs for those, I think.
I would say like get lab experience if you can get
Definitely.
exposed to research and see if that's something you like.
Mm-hmm.
Because sometimes you may have an idea that you like, but then when you're hands-on,
It's different on a daily
it's very
basis.
repetitive,
Yeah.
and you just need to be very persistent. And sometimes people don't see the results coming so fast and get frustrated, but so get exposed.
Mhm.
I would say that's the most important, is to make sure you're what scientists do. That's really important, because sometimes I think the undergrads that we welcome into our lab, they have this notion that we're going to be doing, these really groundbreaking experiments, but no, we're just labeling tubes, pipetting. But I mean, they're important experiments that we
Yes.
have planned,
Yeah.
but it's just
It's hard to see the immediate result of
Yeah.
it.
It's
Definitely.
not as glamour
Yeah.
as CSI made it out to be.
CSI.
Yeah. Because
No music.
no music.
Oh, they get everything done in half an hour.
I know. There is a lot of centrifugation.
Yeah.
That's the same thing.
No black lights.
No red lights. But that's true, like with the lab experience. And there's a ton of ways to get lab experience.
Mhm.
You could always apply for summer fellowships, and Cedar Folk does have a summer fellowship. You could apply for a job as a research assistant, and that's a lot of research assistants make up a lot of the research community here, and even just volunteering for unpaid internship. And I know that doesn't sound great, but that's a good way to kind of get your feet wet and get to know what people do.
And if you like it and the PI likes you, then,
It could
it can
easily
progress into a paid job.
Yeah.
A
And I
lot of
think
it.
that also begins the networking, because
Yeah.
I can see how like my path has
Uh-huh.
led me to where I'm at based off of the work I did, the unpaid internships that I volunteered to be a part of, and
Mhm.
yeah.
I think too, I speak with also lots of bachelor's, master's students, and they ask me, and one of the things is, and I think it's true for anybody, just go out and do more research, whether it's a job or it's a volunteer or it's an intern or whatever. You're showing, your future employer or future, PI, mentor, that you're doing work and you're getting more experience, and it all builds on it. So.
Mhm.
Definitely.
Okay, next question. What projects are you working on right now?
Okay, I guess I'll start. The project that I'm working on right now is kind of an extension of my graduate program, my graduate thesis. So for my graduate thesis, I worked on working on conditions that would allow progenitors, these are committed stem cells, I guess what you call them, to be able to form insulin-producing cells. Insulin-producing cells we want so that we could use as a cell replacement therapy for type 1 diabetes patients. I worked on the conditions, and the specific cell population that I work with was newborn cells. They have more of a progenitor capacity than, say, adult cells, and therefore they're a pretty good model for what an adult progenitor would be. Now I'm looking at a mouse model which had a receptor knocked out, and see whether that has any effect on the ability of that beta cell to secrete insulin. So by having this receptor knocked out, can the beta cells still secrete enough insulin in response to high glucose? If they cannot, then why? And so that's what I'm working with.
So for me, the main focus of my project is to use the non-islet human tissue that we get from donors and work on the growth factors and manipulating the signaling pathways to progress not only just stem cell growth and expansion, but also the endpoint differentiation into beta-like cells that secrete insulin, and optimize the conditions so that they are very similar to a normal beta cell secretion. And yeah, so I'm in the early stages of that right now.
So my research, the general question I have is, how do cancer cells adapt their metabolism during times of a nutrient shortage? And that is a relevant question because when you consider how cancer cells proliferate, that means they're just growing, they're dividing, they're growing in number. And during that time, you'll have the blood, which supplies, nutrients. But as the cancer grows, there will be moments when it won't have access to all of those nutrients. They won't have that cardiovascular system. And so that at that time, they're undergoing this metabolic stress. And so the question, that our lab generally asks is, how do cancer cells adapt to that, to those moments? And so my research is basically using human osteosarcoma cancer cells and trying to identify that a mechanism. I have some preliminary data. Again, it's just a lot going on and a lot of mass data metabolite analysis that I'm going through, but I have some promising results that hopefully I can share soon with others.
So I'm currently working on 2 projects. One project is very mechanistic. Actually, there's a new drug in the market. It's the hottest drug for treatment of cancer. It was approved for melanoma and now for non-small lung cell, which is it's a checkpoint inhibitor. It's an immunomodulatory drug, and it works on about 25-30% of patients, and it worked really well in a subset of patients, but people don't really know why other people don't respond. And that's because the mechanism by which this drug works, it's not very well known. So my research now that I'm about to submit for publication uncover like novel aspects of this mechanism, which involve innate immunity. Most of the studies are focused on adaptive immunity. So this is a total different way that this drug can be working. This is important because patients may be really immunosuppressed by the time they receive the treatment. And that's one project. And the other project is that our lab developed a salmonella-based vaccine, which carries a shRNA plasmid that downregulates a very important immunosuppressive enzyme called endolamine 2,3-deoxygenase, or IDO. So our lab recently published a paper showing like amazing effects on preclinical model of pancreatic cancer, both orthotopic and spontaneous model. So now we have companies interested in licensing this vaccine. So I'm working on the translational side of it, which is now we redirect the salmonella carrying the plasmid that will downregulate human IDO, and I'm starting to test that in humanized animal models. So,
Thank you. Our next question is, what universities would you recommend with great programs? I want to be a postdoc one day. Maybe, or how would you go about selecting a great university?
I would not select a great university. I would select a great lab. Yeah, it really doesn't matter.
Right.
You can be in a small place and land in a really good lab where you get good papers and good mentorship, or you can be in a big university and end up, in not so friendly lab. So at the end, it doesn't matter which university you go for your postdoc, it matters your productivity.
Graduates
Oh,
school.
yeah.
Yeah, and I think it applies for postdoc as well.
Yeah.
I do think that there are some great graduate programs in the country, but then, I mean, it depends on where you want to go. But I think that, this is my plug for University of Minnesota, but I think the University of Minnesota had a great graduate program, and I really enjoyed my time there. And I think it really set me up to be as competitive as I am now as a postdoc. In addition to having a really great mentor, like the mentor that will vary. I mean, you'll find some great mentors wherever you go, or you'll find some really bad ones, and they might be at the same institution. But it just has to. You have to do your own research on that.
Yeah, find an area of science that you like and what you're interested in, and maybe an area of the country you'd like to go to, and then look at the schools to see if there's labs that overlap with your interests. I think that's the best recommendation.
Thank you. That's a good transition to our next question. Some of you mentioned that you come from outside of the USA. How do you like it here in Southern California?
I love it. That's why I've been here for so long. So I was born and raised in Malaysia. I came to US for undergraduate. So I moved here in 2005. I went to undergrad in upstate New York, which was really cold. And I actually went to Minnesota a couple of times to visit a friend. Well, all this experience is to let me know that me and winter don't go well together. So the next chance I get, I moved to California. I did my master's in North California, and now I'm here in Southern California. And I really, really enjoy it. The weather did wonders because it's almost similar to where I was from, which is, a tropical country. And so the nice warm weather is every day is always nice. So yeah, I mean, it's personal personality thing. I've always enjoyed my time here. I've never, like in the US, I've never felt like it was like I was an outsider, which is kind of surprising, to be honest. I mean, I think I grew up very shy and I kept to myself, but as I moved here, I think I came out of my shell because it was just, people are nice, and I got to meet a lot of new friends, and it's great. Yeah.
Well, I also moved here in 2005.
Oh.
And I'm from Rio, so that's also a tropical weather, carnival, and you come out of your shell when you're there, not when you're here. And I lived in Ohio for 6 years. It was a great experience, terrible winters, but then we moved here, and I really like here, but I must say, I kind of miss the Midwest too.
Oh.
I love the fall colors, and the people were super nice. And I also never felt like I was an outsider, but it may be that because we are in science and there's people from all over the world everywhere.
Yeah.
And that maybe makes it easy. So I would say definitely
That's very true.
it's a great experience.
Also, does City of Hope provide immigration support for international candidates? And we do have a immigration services department, so yes, we do.
I actually don't have experience with the immigration department here, but
Yeah.
I know they offer.
I actually have a lot of experience with the immigration department here. So much that we've actually I have her number because I always have something to ask her. So their immigration services are great. They work with the graduate school, they work with the postdoc office to make sure that your transition is smooth. Any questions that you have, you can always just shoot them an email. And they're working towards having more resources available for people who may be wondering about what is it like in City of Hope and what is it like in Southern California. Working towards having a guide published online, so that could be helpful for a lot of people. So far, any issues that came up with immigration, I've always been able to deal with it with the help of people here. So, and of course there are issues. There's always going to be issues, but it's as long as it got worked out, it's pretty good. Yeah.
Fantastic, thank you. We're getting close to the end of our time, so in closing, I think I'd like just to say that City of Hope has a very active continuing postdoctoral fellowship program. We have the postdoctoral training office here at City of Hope, as well as several open positions. For more information, go to www.cityofhope.org/careers and look for science and research positions. Additionally, for more information about our research activities, go to cityofhope.org/research. And our postdoctoral fellowship programs are 1-year positions up to a maximum of 6 years. And we thank you very much for joining us today. My name is Andy Powell. Thank you and have a good day.